Hello, welcome back to the Flipping Junkie podcast. So excited today to have Tim Randle of Rei Club fame on the podcast. Now, I've been hanging out with Tim quite a bit because we've joined I joined a mastermind that he was in and still is in, and have really enjoyed getting to know him more and talk with him. And, we have a funny story about, well, it's not really funny, but it just kind of maybe dates us a little bit with how we first started talking that you reminded me of when we got together. But Tim basically has been investing in real estate since the early 90s. He left corporate life as a CPA and senior financial analyst in 2000 to become a full-time real estate investor. In 2002, he launched what would become REI Club. That's an online educational site that teaches others how to invest in real estate. And so the beautiful thing about that is Tim created something that gave back and gave a bunch of education for a bunch of people in this business to get their start. And, that giving spirit is definitely within him. So I'm really pumped to have you on the show, Tim. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate being invited, and hopefully we can provide value to your audience.
Yeah, I'm sure you will, man. You got a lot of history in this business, and, looking forward to it. So I'm wearing a shirt right now that says, if you're watching the YouTube on YouTube, it's youtube.com/flippingjunkie. It says unemployable. And this is a shirt that Tim obviously gave me because he's wearing the same, he's wearing the same shirt right now.
Unplanned.
Yeah. So, and actually I got two copies of these, two shirts, which is super cool. Made me feel like I was extra special. Then he told me why I got two shirts.
Or you want me to go into that?
No, it's just, yeah, I don't need, it was a mistake. But anyway, I got two, so I felt extra special, and I'm going to keep thinking I'm extra special. But thanks for sending that. Let's start like I always do. I typically will ask somebody coming on the show, how did you get interested in real estate, and how did you get your start?
Okay. So like you said, I was a numbers guy, dealt with numbers in the corporate world, also big reader, like to study personal development and self-growth type things, and just knew from a fairly early age that real estate and real estate investing were going to play a part in our financial plan, and probably a big part. So that's when I first got married, my wife and I went and bought a duplex to try to reduce, the amount of money that we were shelling out every month. So that's kind of how we got started. And I can talk more about that later on when I get into the topic. But it was, like I said, we just knew from an early age that lots of people that become wealthy and comfortable use real estate as a vehicle to do so.
Oh yeah, it's the best. I love it. I love real estate. And I wanted to go ahead and transition by turning around to show what's on the back of the shirt. And would you mind reading that?
No, you gotta get higher. All right. It says, I design my own life. I create my own freedom. I'm one deal away, reiclub.com.
I love that shirt, especially the unemployable in the front. But what I wanted to ask you, I've been itching to ask you about, is that last line, one deal away. What's the story there? What's the reason for having that on the shirt?
Well, it's not a short story, but I think
we're on a long podcast, so that's good.
I think many people just assume one deal away means like the first deal when you become a real estate investor. But it's really more of the next deal, because you're wherever you are in the journey, you're one deal away from something. So like, for example, it could be your first deal. You could be one deal away from doing your first deal. It could be one deal away from quitting your job. It could be one deal away from replacing your income, from putting systems and processes in place where you have a real business. It could be one deal away from a new hire where you're starting to build out your team and take some of the load off yourself. It could be a goal thing, like the next deal, we're gonna take that trip to the Caribbean, or for wholesalers, if you're getting a chunk of cash here and there. But if you're like a flipper and you've got a large chunk of cash, we're gonna pay off the car, we're gonna put some money aside for college. So like I said, or it could be at some point we all get close to that next deal, that one deal away from our financial freedom deal, where we have the freedom to do whatever we want to do and live the life that we dreamed about.
Nice. Yeah. So it means a bunch of different things to whoever is going to have that as a goal to use the next deal to do whatever it is. And I think it's so beautiful to be in an industry where like one deal, how crazy is that one deal can do those big things, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I didn't go into detail, but I mean, one deal, you could be one deal away from changing the path that your life is on. It could change how you view yourself and your self-esteem. It could give you a level of status either in your mind or family and friends' mind, like, oh wow, that they are actually out doing real estate and making it happen. And one of the things that I like to say is I'm a big fan of chunks of cash. And when I had a salary, I appreciated getting a check, consistently all the time. But it wasn't until I started getting chunks of cash that, it changes your mindset. It changes what you can do, whether that's smaller chunks of cash from a wholesaler or large chunks of cash, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 as a rehabber. So the chunks of cash is a big deal. Also, I forgot to mention too, you could be one deal away from meeting someone important that will become important in your life. So for me, for example, I met someone on one of my early deals who was my contractor, and he worked on my next 50 deals with me. That was awesome. I met another person who, I mean, you might meet someone who becomes your private lender and totally changes the trajectory of your business. On one of the properties I had later on, I had someone call me as a potential buyer that recognized my name from online forums. We ended up becoming friends, and then even later became business partners.
Wow.
So, who knows what you're one deal away from?
Yeah, that's awesome. And what I'm thinking whenever you're mentioning all of that is that's what's really nice about the business as well, is that no two deals are really alike. I mean, it can get somewhat similar, but you never know what's going to happen on each one of those deals. Who, like you just said, who you might meet, who, things that could come about of that, or problems that come up in this business that you've got to solve that allow you to go down different paths and to grow and to continue to grow in your life. I know some of the first deals really helped me break some of the limiting beliefs, because even I don't know that I actually ever sat down and thought, wow, I think that all I can do is trade hours for dollars. Like, that wasn't something I sat there and thought about, but I think it was ingrained in me that that's the way it worked. And and so, like you said, getting that first chunk of cash from one of those deals, and then all of a sudden, like, having this feeling of, it wasn't this logical thing, oh, now it's chunks of cash instead of dollars for hours. It's this feeling of a complete mindset shift and excitement from knowing, wow, the sky is now the limit.
Oh, agreed. I mean, like I said, I still say chunks of cash are life changing.
Mhm.
They just give you a different perspective, and like you said, it kind of cements the fact that, oh wow, there are other pathways out there.
Great. So, with people listening, might be saying, okay, one deal away, that's great, but I've not done a deal yet. Do you have any advice for people getting started about, even if it's starting with mindset, right? Because I think that's a big part of it. What are your recommendations for somebody getting started to try to get that one deal?
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head for this whole business, the whole industry is, if you're going to do something outside what is considered the norms, it's going to be very challenging to get there unless you start working on mindset. For me, I talk about one deal away because I actually kind of stair stepped my way through the process, and I was slow. A lot of people just jump in and they hit the ground running. I was very slow, and I could actually, if you want, I can kind of go through some of the one deal away phases that I went through, which might
Yeah.
help people that want to get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so like I said, my wife and I bought a duplex right after we got married, and we had our tenant, that was like their front door was five steps away from our front door, and it was a financial decision. But we didn't really feel like a real estate investor. We just had invested in real estate. And I guess let me back up, as one of my personal goals has always been that I wanted to be a good husband and a good father. That was primary for me. So we lived in this duplex for a while. We're both working. After a couple of years, we have our first son, decide that we need to upgrade, and this, the duplex is a little small. So at this point, we're one deal away from actually being in a house, and one deal away from having a rental property, because once we move out, then obviously we'll have the duplex as a full-blown rental property. So we do that, we buy the house, and now we have this rental property, but we still don't really feel like real estate investors. I mean, like, we call ourselves real estate investors because it feels good, but it didn't really seem like we were anything special. But we knew that we wanted to do real estate. So, initial plan was we're going to have X number of rental properties throwing off, Y number of dollars per month, and that's going to pay our bills once we get there. We're not sure how long it's going to take us to get there. So I went back to reading some real estate books I started going online to forums. I started going to the local real estate club, and eventually pulled out an old Carlton Sheets course. You familiar with that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, and for me, like I say, we were probably 2 or 3 years in the duplex, and probably, I don't know, a couple of years in, a year or two into the house by this point. And we've had our second child. So we got two boys. So anyway, I pull out the Carlton Sheets course, go through it again. It says, do this, do this, do this. So one Saturday I get up and I do what he tells me to do. And within the first hour, I'm not sure how many calls, I think it was like 5 or 6 calls, I'm calling landlords to see if they want to sell. Within the first hour or so, I'm over at somebody's house signing it up on a contract with, I think, very little money, like $10 earnest money deposit or something. It was really ridiculous. And I'm like, well, that was really kind of easy. That was way too easy. And so we kind of sat on that idea for a few days. And the next weekend, like, okay, well, I'm going to, now I'm one deal away. Can I do it again? The next weekend, same thing. Saturday morning, I get up, start making phone calls. It wasn't quite as quick this time. It took more calls, but within just a few hours, I'm at another house signing it up. I'm like, oh, this is real.
Okay. You know how many people are going to be looking on eBay for Carlton Sheets courses now?
Well, that's funny. Well, I have a story about that, but I'll come back to it. But anyway, so
you
I
said
continued
it took you a long time. And
oh,
then
yeah.
Here you are. It was, and your experience with Carlton Sheets is much different than mine. Mine, I started watching it and I was like, oh my God, this guy is like used car salesman calling these people and like trying to finagle a deal out of it. And I'm like, I don't want anything to do with this. And I mean, that was my opinion. It was wrong, like a limiting belief and more fear than anything else. But I put that back in the box and put it back in the garage. And, it took me another year before I ventured out to actually try again. But yeah, congrats on actually using it and having.
Well, like you say, that's the key. So, and that relates to my Carlton story. So at some point around that time, I read an article, because Carlton Sheets, like you say, he was on TV every night. He was on all over eBay, but there was somebody had done a study. I think it was like 97% of the Carlton Sheets courses that were being resold were still in the shrink wrap.
Wow.
So people got all excited, but then when they got there, they never actually opened it to even see what was required. So
that's big. And I think a lot of times we talk ourselves into believing that there's way more competition than there really is. Oh,
absolutely. Right? Absolutely. I mean, like I said, all it took, like you said, the first deal, you go, oh, wow, maybe I can do this. This isn't as difficult as I thought it was. And, it's one step after another. And then, you want me to continue with my story?
Yeah.
Okay. So I started doing this, and now, I'm a numbers guy. So I'm corporate, I'm working 50 to 60 hours a week. And now all of a sudden I'm doing real estate where I'm doing 1 to 2 deals a month, but I'm doing it before work. I'm going out on appointments during my lunch hour. I'm going out in the evenings. I'm going out in the weekend. So probably 15, 20 hours a week doing real estate. And I'm not, by all definitions, I'm not the good husband that I wanted to be. I'm not the good father that I wanted to be, because I'm putting in, 75, 80 hours a week at least trying to do this real estate stuff. So I'm having lots of issues with this, but on one hand, I am now a real estate investor because we're building up properties. But on the other hand, I'm not doing what I really want to do, which is, be the good husband, be the good father. So what I was going to say was, so this started eating at me, and this continues for a lot of months. I'm still going to real estate events, and I don't know if have you ever heard that song, "I Don't Want to Wait" by Paula Cole?
Yeah, for our lives to be over or whatever.
Yeah. So Sunday nights, and this is part of how I found Carlton in the first place was from a different job. But, now I don't want to go to sleep on Sunday nights, because the next thing I got to do when I get up after I go to sleep Sunday nights is get up and go to work. I'm dreading work. I can see that real estate is my way out, but I haven't figured out how to get there. I haven't figured out how to do it well enough to get there yet. So I'm staying up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday nights, dragging my butt to work on Mondays. And this song is all over the radio. And it's, I don't remember the lyrics, and I certainly can't sing, but it's by Paula Cole. I don't want to wait till our lives are over. Did the sons grow to know their father? These kind of lines that, of course, weren't written for me, but it's just eating at me every time, making me teary almost on the way to work. And so I'm dealing with this. Are you going to be a real estate investor? Are you going to make this happen? So I'm one deal away from trying to figure out whatever my next step is. And I know that I don't really see a light at the end of the tunnel yet.
Yeah.
I'm at an event in Atlanta, I think a 3-day event. And I don't recall who the speaker was or what they said. They said something that triggered a serious emotional response. I started losing it and had to get up and leave the event and go outside because I was starting to lose it. And it was really because I felt like such a wimp that I wasn't able to quit my job and go do this real estate stuff. And a couple of friends of mine came out. One was David Alexander. Do you know him by chance?
Oh man, that name rings a bell, but yeah, I don't remember where.
Okay, he's
He
been
was
around.
real active in the forums there, right? Maybe that's where I remember.
He was, yeah. He used to be, he's old school like I am. He had a company called banditsigns.com. But I'm good friends with David, and then another person, Stephanie Dawkins. They're both more the ready, fire, aim, let's go type personality. So they come out trying to figure, because they saw that I'd left and were trying to figure out what was going on with me. And after a conversation with those two, we eventually came to an agreement that once I had 2 deals, which were fix and flips, 2 rehabs in the hopper, that I would quit my job. So they pinned me down to a game plan to get out of my job. And I don't recall what the first deal at all, because it didn't matter. But once the first deal was done, now I'm 1 deal away from quitting my job. So I definitely remember, that one. And I go out, it was on a lunch appointment. It was on Caddo Street in Austin. Got along with the seller great. She had told me that she would get, that she liked what I had to say, that she would get back to me. I'm about to head out the door. And she said, well, hang on. She said, there were actually other investors here like a half hour before you did. And they kept talking all this win bullshit until they turned me off. And she said, the reason I was hesitant is because they offered me $7,000 more than you're offering me. But she said, but I like you. You seem genuine, so I'm going to go with you. I'm like, okay, that's great. I really appreciate it. I'll get you the paperwork, as soon as I get back to the office, blah, blah, blah. So I get in my car, and as soon as I'm out of earshot, I'm rolling down the windows and I'm screaming top of my lungs. I mean, like as loud as I can scream, because I'm just so stoked that I'm about to go turn in my notice. There was a song, Katrina and the Waves, Walking on Sunshine. So in between screaming and singing that song all the way back to the office, I'm sure people thought I was nuts whenever I pull up to a traffic light, because I didn't care.
That's what I'm thinking right now,
But I still remember, like I say, I still remember those moments. And when I got back to turning my notice, my voice was so hoarse I could barely actually get my notice in.
Oh man, that's so funny. I love that part about they were talking about this win. And it's so funny when people say things that they think that you want to hear, and it's so obvious that you're only saying it because you think that that's what they want to hear. It's just, it's ridiculous.
Right. If it's actually win-win, you don't have to say it. It'll be obvious.
Right.
But
Let me spell this out for you in case you're not picking up on what I'm handing you here. It's like,
exactly.
you don't know how good of a deal this is for you, ma'am. You better take it. This is really good for you. But
Like you've been there once or twice.
I've heard it, but yeah. So it's nice to get the, having the sellers tell you that, other people offered more, but they just did not like the other people. That's a huge takeaway here. And I think that stems from, just being who you are when you're doing these things, because we can get into this educational side of it and see this guy's had this much more success, and he backs it up with numbers and says, I did this many more because I did this one tactic. And, if we try to use that tactic and it's just not us, it's not going to work the same. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to find what works for you. Obviously, no. I think as we experience it, we'll find that out, because we each have our own approaches, I think, that work. And maybe sometimes you could get more by doing it the other way, but it doesn't feel right to you, and you're just not happy using those tactics. But
well, I agree with that 100%. I mean, if you're not coming from a place of service, yes, any time that there's large dollars involved, I mean, you can have people that have, I won't say evil, but their particular intentions may not be one of service. But I think that's a key point for the real estate investors, because we don't want to end up, like you said, like the slimy car salesman. We want to have an industry that is considered to be one of integrity and one of service.
that's awesome. No, that's big. And I'm glad that you talked about it. So what would be the next, so you were full-time at this point. So how long had you been doing it part-time? How long did that take? What was that transition?
That was almost, I think that was 18 months.
Okay.
Like I said, I was a little slow stair-stepping my way along the real estate staircase, I guess.
Well, I did the same thing, and it took me getting fired to finally leave the job. I had to get fired. So it takes some of us a little bit longer than others to go full-time and feel comfortable in it. So what brought about the starting of REI Club?
Okay, well, that's a different story. So it goes back to the real estate club, and what you will, for those of you that are doers and are going to actually start, that are doing real estate or are going to start doing real estate, what you'll find if you go to your local club is, the 80-20 rule. 80% of the people there are there to talk and learn, but not necessarily do anything. And one of the things that I discovered is there was a group of people that were actually doing stuff. And those were the people that I wanted to associate with, to share information with, get some of their best ideas, share some of my best ideas. And so I became friends with the director of the Austin Club at that time. And this went on for, even after I was full-time, for a couple of years. And I had looked at websites and other things. And back then it wasn't obvious that, everybody has to have a website, but I had explained to our director, it's like, we really need a website so that we can share resources. We can share contractors. We can share deals. When national speakers come in to speak at the club, we can put their products and materials up on the website. And that was part of our plan, we were going to do a revenue share for that. And that would be, my piece for running the website. And what triggered all this is someone had showed me way back when, right click, view source code. And of course, websites were much simpler back then. It's like, oh, I bet I can figure that out. And so I spent lots of late nights for 3 or 4 months building out the Austin Real Estate Club website, and like hundreds of hours. And when I finally got it to where I wasn't completely embarrassed, I brought it over to show the director, and he said, well, I've changed my mind. I decided I want to stay nonprofit, and I don't want a website, and I don't want to do that. I'm like, what? You can't be serious. And he's like, oh, yeah, I am. And of course, it was just a verbal agreement at that time. I'm like, okay, well, I had to shift. So within a week it became, or, within a very short period of time, it became the Texas Real Estate Club. And it was just growing because there were a bunch of us that were answering questions and helping people. And when very shortly thereafter, it became reiclub.com.
Nice.
So that's kind of the genesis. And then, we're going on 18 years now. So.
Man, that's awesome. So how did the people start trickling in and finding it and making it more of a national, and even international, I would assume, because you've got a ton of content on there, and then the forums are invaluable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, the forums have tons of information. We've actually closed them down for new activity, and we've moved over to a Facebook group. But there's, 100,000 plus posts in there. As far as how we got traffic, it was at the same time I started learning about websites. I was learning about SEO, search engine optimization. So I had actually, in addition to this website, I'd actually launched my own website, which at the time was called Quick Offers, where I was getting actually investing leads all over the country, and was licensing out to other investors by county, because I didn't know enough investors around the country to farm all these leads out. So I was working both websites, but primarily doing it through SEO and making sure that we got ranked well.
Nice. Yeah, because that was a website where I learned early on. I learned a lot from REI Club, and then continue to whenever I need specific information about something and maybe a strategy that I wanted to learn about a little bit more. And so thank you so much for having that and putting the time into it, because I know you've spent a ton of time on all of the content and moderating and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely, that's true. I was not aware that you were actually familiar with it and had used it in the past. So that's cool to hear.
Yep. Yeah. And then I guess that was how we first started talking a long time ago, was when Flipping Junkie was just getting started. You had a blog contest.
I did.
And,
so we used to do, for several years, we did the best blog contest, and it was a combination of individual blogs, compilation blogs, and there was this guy named Danny Johnson. Yeah, I think it was Flipping Junkie. Is that right?
Yeah, that weirdo.
And he won the contest one year. We put it out to a group vote, and Danny, I forget what you won, but you got some small prize for contributing and having your blog.
Actually, it was really cool what the prize was. I still remember it was some CDs on different topics.
Okay.
And so like some were like negotiations, some were short sale. It was pretty cool. I still do remember receiving those. I may have regifted some of them for giveaways for different things, because it's super valuable. But there was a lot. You gave a lot of them, and so yeah, it was really cool to do that. And that was what, 6 months ago.
6 months ago, what? Yeah, I mean, like 11, 12 years ago.
Yeah. Time flies, man. It's crazy. All right. So thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story. And, if people are wanting to connect with you and find out more about what you've got going on with REI Club and business in general, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I would just say hit reiclub.com, and regardless of where your interests are, there's probably something there for you.
Nice. And then the Facebook group, if people want to find that, is that something that you're letting whoever wants to come in?
It actually is. It was intended to be private, but currently we're letting everybody in. It's called the Unemployables. So facebook.com/group/unemployables with the plural with an S.
Nice. Yeah. So everybody listening, go over there and take part in that. You got a bunch of great people in there. And thank you so much, Tim.
Thanks for having me on, Danny. I appreciate it. And hopefully, like I say, hopefully some people got some good stuff out of that.
No, I'm sure they did. And yeah, well, have a great day. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care.
All right.